my ethnic belonging. But can this movement of the Gen Zs, which has led to concessions from the government and this culture of Mtuwetu syndrome and the often trump card, which is the political flimsy reasons that are often thrown into the debate, could this be the end point of this and rather focus on issue-based debates and governance issues that the young generation has kick-started? Are they the injection point of that fresh blood into our political system?
Actually, at the independence, Kenya was grappling 3 challenges: ignorance, poverty, and illiteracy.
We still are.
At the moment, it is unfortunate, 60 years after independence, we are still grappling with the same challenges at unexhibited ranges. You steal as an individual, then you seek defense as a community. I think at this point in time, the movement of Gen Zs is a confirmation that going forward, individual responsibility is not a matter of question. It is a responsibility that it is a law, by the way, in the public domain that you have to take responsibility of your individual activities. How do you loot public coffers empty and then you retreat back to your community in the name of defense? And that brings us to how people ascend to power. Take, for example, William Ruto, the current president. He is a man who got to power through populist politics. Little did he know that he was digging a hole for himself. This is a man who opened people's eyes on what we actually ought to have been having. But unfortunately, when he got to power, I think power got into his head and he forgot the people, the hustlers, and gave them another definition. So whenever we are going to elect people based on ethnic extractions as opposed to suitability and merit, then we are still going to miss it as a nation. And that's why we are coming in with the aspect of leaderless, tribeless, religiousness, because we've seen our problem with religion. You saw the other day, the president was very fast to host a group of religious leaders at State House. These are men and women who never opposed the finance bill. Yeah. They were never in the streets, but they were the first persons to sit around the president. That draws me back to
a good number of religious leaders have said no to the finance bill.
But the majority of
just
the
to be fair, we have the likes of Archbishop Anthony Muheria on record for saying this is a punitive bill, reconsider. The Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops in a statement said, no, this is going to make life difficult for Kenyans. I mean, it's unfair blanket statement, is it, when you say that
most of them who are at State House are people who never made their stance on the finance bill.
So you know them?
And when
you know them?
I could see their faces. Anthony Muheria was not part of them.
Okay.
So I would tell you that the dalliance between the president or the presidency and the religious leaders draws us back to the biblical stories of King Ahab and prophets of Baal. I think that is what we are having today. These are people who are telling the president what he wants to hear, as opposed to what he should be told. And then, so going forward, the movement has set the bare minimums on public engagement. You know, when it comes to public participation, these are a constitutional process that had been hijacked by the political class to suit their personal interest. I have an instance of an MP or an MCA calling for public participation, not because they want to incorporate the people's opinions into the concept in question, but they call it as a formality to rubber stamp the entire process. So we are really moving fast forward, knowing that the people's voice is the voice of God. So we really have to incorporate the people, and not by just listening to them, but acting upon their issues.
But how then does this change that trajectory? Because Kuria Kimani, the chairperson of that Committee on Finance and National Planning, said during the final day of the public participation exercise that this is not going to be a cosmetic exercise. We will put into consideration some of the submissions that you have made before us. Yet there are MPs who are on record saying, Ata sijasoma hii bill, some saying, mpenda musipenda, this bill will pass. Do you think this sort of approach and the disrespectful manner in which the Kenyan people are often addressed by the political class would end?
You see, character is like pregnancy. You cannot hide it. So the arrogance in which the politicians have been addressing their bosses, whom they perceive to be their servants, has actually shifted. For the first time, if you are to discredit protest, you've seen MPs publicly reject salary increment. Were it not for the demonstrations, we would not be there as a nation today. So the shift, I mean, the change is actually visible and evident that the MPs or the leaders have known that the people are still the power owners. And going forward, it is not a matter of incorporating us for the sake of numbers, but you have to listen to us. We speak through issues one-on-one and not taking people for granted for the sake of just seeing them there as electors. Because in the history of this country, I think for the first time, Ayub, we are going to have accountable parliament, because one of the challenges we are facing today is an administration that has captured vital institutions of justice and services. The presidency has captured parliament and by extension the judiciary. And parliament is not only captured, but also castrated. And the DCI boss emeritus warned us of a potential risk of having a parliament infiltrated by wash-wash gang. So if you elect a presidency of ICC alumni, and then you go to parliament and elect individuals with questionable backgrounds, what do you expect as a country?
Well, some may also argue that also George Kinoti has no moral authority because he violated many court orders that he never adhered to. I mean, we are talking about an establishment that is deeply rooted. And when the shoe is not on their foot, they tend to castigate the other party.
Yesterday,
because if you look at the case of Miguna, how many court orders were violated that were not adhered to the extent that arrests because of contempt of order, they were to serve some jail term. So where do we draw the line here? As a young person now, where do we then draw the line in seeking this wholesale change, the overhaul of our political system, and get the right people for the right positions? Yes, the structures are there, but we are lacking the people. And it doesn't mean that the people aren't there. The pool of professionals who have the competence, who are qualified is there, but they are ignored because of political decisions that are made at the executive.
The political class must distinguish between satisfying political ambitions of individuals while also offering services to the people. The presidency, which is the appointing authority, must distinguish between satisfying its political acolytes, or let me call them sycophants or affiliates, at the expense of appointing people with on meritocracy for service delivery to the people.
Okay, yes.